Welcome to the Blue Collar Nation podcast, the podcast dedicated to making the lives of home service professionals better. Now join Eric and Larry to talk about all things home service.
Wonderful. Well, hello, everybody. This is Larry and Eric with Super Tech University on the Super Profit Community Facebook group. And a quick intro. Our mission here at Super Tech University help you, the owner, the entrepreneur, run your business more successfully, profitable, with more satisfying, especially by having a great team around. Let's be focused on you. What the things that Eric's going to be presented today, it's not theory. This is the stuff that we did in our business. We practiced this. We implemented it, and so can you. So if you want, ask questions, comments. If you're fine with us, and if not, we'll do a little Q&A after. We're going to be here for about 15, 20 minutes. Eric and I ran a service company for more than 10 years. Hang on, I got my intro here. Still going strong.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of background noise, bud.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. We sold our company. We found effective practices that we want to pass along to you, so you don't have to struggle like we do. Business, this is Eric saying, is an extreme sport. Earn everything you can so it doesn't kill you.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. Very true. All right. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I'll mute myself since you say my sound's horrible, so make it happen.
Enjoy
Excited.
enjoy Starbucks. Okay, yeah, we're gonna talk about the 8 types of cheap clients, right? The price conscious clients that we all come across, right? We all have this. All of us are out doing bids. All of us are, trying to get that work flowing in. And look, not every single person that we come across is an easy sale or just a quick buyer, right? And we have to have a way of A, identifying who we're dealing with, and B, having a way to overcome that. So I'm going to go pretty quick because there's 8 and we only go about 15, 20 minutes. So let me get into type 1. I call that the anchored buyer. And why I say anchored is it means they've done a bunch of research on either ChatGPT or Google or whatever, and they've anchored themselves to a belief that the price should be X, right? And then they're going to say, well, I saw it online for this, or I did this, and this is what my friend said, or my neighbor said, or this happened, right? So they have oftentimes a false belief that the price should be something that maybe it isn't, right? So, they're not going to buy from us until we reset their reference point. Right. That's going to be our challenge, is to get them to start questioning where they got that information, why they think that information is gospel, and how do we overcome that? Right. So, the best way to do this is to first acknowledge the anchor. Oh, hey, cool. I think it's awesome that you did your research. Good for you, man. I like coming to a home or a business where people have done their homework. Right. And now I'm going to start asking questions. So, do you think that because you found that on ChatGPT that would be exactly the price? Right? Do you feel that's true? Okay, great. What's that based on? Do you mind? Could we pull up what you prompted? Right? Because we all know, like, if they go online, the prompt usually will change the price. So I'm going to start reframing that to what needs to be done. Hey, let's walk around. Let's do an inspection. Let's see if our inspection yields the same questions that you asked online or you asked your neighbor. And now all of a sudden they're realizing what? There's more variables than what they thought there was. Now I can start talking to them about why the investment is probably going to be different, right? And, they're not going to buy when your price is the only number in the thing. Look, that's one of the reasons why I like selling in packages, right? I want to give them an economy. I want to give them a standard option. I want to give them a premium option. So one of my prices is probably going to be closer to what their anchor is. Now we're just negotiating which thing, right? So that's the anchored buyer. Look, we get a lot of that. That's common, right? The next one is the budget constrained buyer, the person who literally just doesn't have a lot of money floating around, or they don't have a lot of extra money, right? We all know That happens all the time. Gas prices are high, food prices are high, housing prices are high, people are stretched thin, and we're going to get this, right? It depends a little bit on our trade, right? But, what we're going to hear is, I just don't have the money for this, even if they're not saying it overtly, right? They're not going to just say, I don't have the money for this. They're going to ask, can this wait? Do I have to do all of it? Do I need to do this? Could we leave this out? Right? That's a person who's just trying to figure out look, we've all been there. How do I get through this event? How do I get through this event and still have it somehow fit into my budget, right? They're going to buy from us once we find options that are going to fit into their monthly cash flow, right? Once we are helping them down the road, maybe depending on the trade, maybe we're offering financing. Maybe if it's a restoration job and the deductible's high, maybe we can finance the deductible, right? We have to find ways to help them be able to afford this thing because they're not price shopping you. They have a real budget problem. It's an issue, right? So I'm going to prioritize their safety and their comfort of their family in their home for whatever that may be. That's going to be important to them, regardless if they have money or they don't. I'm going to present financing options. If you don't have financing options, I would strongly encourage you to try to find ways to be able to have a third-party financing. I'm going to give options so that there's an economy option, at least a middle and a high end, right? Maybe that economy option will get them by and they'll be super grateful for you, right? And then I'm going to talk about what the real cost is if we don't take action, right? Because they might be scared. They might be freaking out. But depending on what trade you do, there could be a cost greater than the one that they're facing if they don't do something, right? We see that especially in restoration all the time, but lots of trades for that matter, right? So that leads me to buyer type number 3, the distrustful skeptic, right? So if we were talking about DISC, we're probably talking somebody who's a high C, somebody who really does their homework, really doesn't like salespeople, and really is skeptical about every single thing we say, right? They're going to want proof. They're going to want reviews. They're going to want licenses and what's your permit? And, they're going to ask a lot of questions. Look, guys, when you come up with a distrustful skeptic, you're going to have to wait a bit. Like you're going to be there a while. You're going to have to earn that sale maybe a little bit more than with somebody who's easier, right? But we have to get to the point where we slow down. We need to show them proof. We need to show proof, third-party proof, not your proof. They're not going to believe a word you're going to say, right? We have to explain our standards or maybe our certifications. We're going to have to invite them to ask lots of questions because they're not going to be satisfied until we've answered lots of questions. So invite them to ask questions. And then they like things in writing, right? So let's say we're going to do a good, better, best. We're going to do it in writing. I want to put it in writing, at least on an iPad, and hand it to them. That feels real to them opposed to me just saying it or Larry just saying it, right? So once we can get past that and we're not being pushy and we're not being vague, skeptical people don't like vague, right? If you're being vague, you're out. That's going to be a really hard sell for you. So like if you're a super high I, that person who's a skeptical buyer is going to be the toughest sale for you probably. Larry, toughest sale? Person wants tons of detail and
bring documentation. Bring documentation.
Yeah.
You got to have that bulk of documentation. You'll never get anywhere.
Exactly. Right. Or being overconfident without proof, right? Just being that cocky salesperson, not going to work with that person. That leads to the next type of person, the commoditizer. They try to make you feel like all companies that do what you do are the same. Right? Why are they doing that? Because they're trying to devalue all the extra things you do to bring it down to like, oh, if you're a carpet cleaner, that all carpet cleaners are the same or all HVAC companies are the same. We all know they're not, but that's also a way for them to try to bring the price down a lot of times, especially if you're a quality company, right? So they're going to treat every company as interchangeable and they're going to be like, just give me a price. You guys are all the same, right? Now we know that we're not all the same. And so we're going to have to say, well, okay, that's cool, but let's talk about that for a minute, right? Now I'm going to have to start trying to differentiate myself from everybody else. I'm going to have to try to get them to see that we're not all the same, right? So like Larry and I had a very high-end cleaning company. We were much more expensive than most of our competitors. But if you started to look at the equipment, you started to look at the amount of training, you started looking at our reviews, all the organizations we were part of, all the certifications our guys had, I'm going to start talking about those things with that commoditizer, right? Because I'm going to have to separate myself from all my lower price competition because in their mind, it's all the same. So it's on me to have a whole, like Larry and I had a big, thick brag book that we took every van had a big brag book, right? It had all of our awards, all of our certifications, pictures from jobs, testimonials, reviews. What am I doing with that brag book? I'm showing that I'm different and therefore the price is probably going to be a little bit more, right? Once we can do that, they're going to start not treating us as a commodity, right? Because a lot of times people also commoditize you because they really just don't know the difference. They're not trying to be difficult. They just don't understand. It's our job to educate them, right? Then we have the control seeker or the negotiator, right? On a disc, probably high D, to be honest, right? And, totally different type of sale there, right? That person's going to often, what can you do for me? It's going to be all about them. They're going to push you for discounts. They're going to test your boundaries. And a lot of times that sale feels uncomfortable, right? That person is pushing you hard, right? They're going to try to also commoditize you in some way, right? So we have to get over that. And, they're going to buy from us once they feel that we're respecting them. They're looking for respect in their own home. They're looking for respect that, hey, I get it. You're a smart guy. You've got a beautiful house. That was an awesome car in the driveway, right? What am I doing? I'm appealing to that ego a little bit to then start having a conversation like, hey, so obviously you like nice things. Yeah, I do. Cool. I'm going to guess all those nice things weren't all that inexpensive. Right now, let me talk about us. We're the Mercedes-Benz of what we do. And then I'm going to go into all the things that we're going to be doing that's better or different than our competitors, right? Because they want the prestige. They want the best. So you have to appeal to their ego on some level to show them that they're discerning and that they can have the best with you, right? So, don't give them discounts. You don't need to give a discount. Give a trade-off. Like I always like to give people a few things in a bid before they ask for a discount because I'm going to give the things that don't cost me very much or easy to do or quick or cheap that still feel good to the client. So therefore, when they start asking for discounts, I'm saying, hey, I already gave you this, 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 and this. Like that's all I could give, right? Maybe you need to adjust the scope with them. Maybe it's timing. A lot of people who are control seekers, they want you there like right away. Hey, if you were ready to sign on the dotted line, we can be here tomorrow, right? But with them, you don't want to negotiate and reduce value because they actually don't respect that very much, right? All right. Type number 6, the information overloader, right? The person that they don't make decisions easily and they just research and don't make a choice and keep researching, right? It's that whole paralysis by analysis thing, right? You're going to hear from them, all kinds of questions. They're not going to want to take action. We're going to go through our whole sales process. And, what we have to do with them is we have to start helping them break down their research. Right? Because look, we all know you can go online and get all the information about whatever we all do very quickly and very easily. That doesn't mean it all applies to the job because they don't have a reference point. And it also doesn't mean that they actually understand that research. So I'm going to ask them, look, guys, selling is asking questions and educating. That's it. Ask the more questions you ask, the closer you are to making that sale every single time. Right. And for that information overloader who's just done all this research, I'm going to ask them to pull up, like, hey, let's talk about it. Let's pull out where did you find this information? Great. Can you read that to me? Can you show that to me? I'd love to talk to you about that. Right. Because all of a sudden what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, well, this, we don't really need this. This isn't applicable here. And here's why. This, we don't really need it. Here's the stuff of all that research that you did that really matters in this job. Right. So what am I doing? I'm moving some of the paralysis away. So I'm bringing them down the road that I need them to go to be with me on so that they're going to buy. And then in the end, I'm going to recommend one path. And then I'm going to start defining the next steps. Hey, Larry, we need to be here, right? Here are your options. What we need to do move forward is I need you to sign this work authorization, and then I can get you on the schedule. And here's the stuff you need to do to be ready for us. All of a sudden, what am I doing? I'm taking that paralysis away from them because I'm telling them next steps. All right. Number 7, 2 more to go, right? Go as fast as I can. The previous bad experience buyer. We've all been there. We've all been to that bid where that person hired a company that was terrible in our industry, and they've got a sour taste in their mouth. And they're very, very reluctant to use us or anybody else again, right? Just to get us to the front door. They've probably done a ton of research and reviews and referrals just to even get there. But look, they've been burned, so they're gun shy, right? They're going to say, I've been burned, or I had, surprise expenses at the end that they didn't tell me about, or that, I had to call back and basically beg to get somebody to come back and fix the problem. And, or the last guy did this, right? They're stuck on before, right? They've been burned and they're not moving forward well, right? What do we do? First thing we do is empathize with that person. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like I'd be upset too, right? Some people just want to be heard. Usually when somebody's had a very bad experience, they just need somebody to give them a couple minutes to vent. Larry and I, when we used to run new losses for flood work, first question is, well, why don't you walk me through what happened, right? And then they would just shoot out all this drama and information about how they felt about the loss, right? It wasn't that Larry and I needed that information because we could tell we did this every day. But what we needed them to do is get it off their chest so that they can move forward, right? They wanted to be heard, right? And, we need to ask them what went wrong. We need to contrast our process or our company we don't want to name the competitor, but like the things that they said were bad, we want to tell them all the things that we do to make sure that that's not going to happen to you because that's not how we operate, right? And then we're going to make the promise very specific. There will be no hidden fees. I'm going to give you an estimate. The final estimate is going to include these things, right? Because they're going to want more detail than probably somebody who hasn't been burned. And basically all the way through that sale, we just need to keep making sure that we're telling them, I've got you. I got your back. I'm not going to let this happen to you again. That's when I'm pulling out that brag book and showing my hundreds of Google reviews and my hundreds of Yelp reviews and all the testimonials from clients. I'm showing them third-party proof. Look, this isn't what we do. We have so many people. Like, go pull out your phone. Pull out a phone or an iPad, hand it to them. Let them read your review. Hopefully, if you're here, I'm assuming your reviews are good or you wouldn't be here right now, right? Right? Show them. If you can show them, then they will go ahead and move forward and buy. And lastly, right? It's the deal identity shopper. It's that person who they identify as like, it has to be, I have to win the deal. I have to get the deal so I can go brag to all my friends that I'm the cheapest or whatever, or I'm the best negotiator or whatever, right? They're proud of winning the deal. They're going to be bragging about, beating vendors down, right? My favorite type of client, my least favorite client in the world, right? And, we're going to have to feed into why do they do that? That's ego. At the end of the day, that's an ego thing, right? That's a power play. Like, I'm in charge. I beat people down, right? So we're going to have to get what we need, but also let that person feel like they're winning, right? So Maybe you already priced that you can give them the premium option at the standard price, right? Okay, great. They feel like they won. They're getting what they need, right? We're throwing in a couple things. Maybe instead of doing like I did, where I'd give a few things at the beginning, if that person's their identity is like, hey, I need to win, I'm holding those back and I'm giving as they're pushing me. Oh, all right, let me throw this in. Oh, let me throw that in. I'm still in control because I knew I was going to give those things away anyway. But now they feel like they're winning. They feel like they beat me, right? And if they don't feel like they win, they're not going to buy. Period. End of story, right? Like they have to feel like they have a victory there. So
thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Nation podcast. For more information about Eric and Larry and Supertech University, please visit us at supertechu.com. That is supertechu.com.